Somebody once said, different context, but it certainly fits with our discussion this morning, nothing makes small print more legible than an accident. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Christian Questions, Talk Radio with your breakfast with Jonathan and Rick. The objective of our program is to discuss with you, our listeners, thought-provoking and meaningful topics based on the Bible. It's a call-in format. We're caller-friendly, and we look forward to hearing from you. So, Jonathan, what's on the table this morning?
Well, Rick, you caught me off guard. Got it. We're talking about, does the Bible have integrity? And our theme text is found in 2 Timothy 3, verse 16. All Scripture is inspired by God and is useful for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness.
All right. And, Jonathan, before we get back into our discussion, what about just the little items of business?
Sure. Our listeners can check us out on the web at www.christianquestions.net. There is a delay, so be aware. There are many archived programs to listen to, about 300, and please use them for your personal Bible study. And if you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on the web, and we will get back to you. Thank
you very much. Again, christianquestions.net. Pretty interesting stuff on there. So, this morning we're talking about the Bible. We're not doing a lot of scripture quoting. Rather, we are doing a lot of scripture investigation as to where it came from, how it got there, and why we think the scriptures are really the express will of God.
And Rick, we have a call waiting for us.
Okay, we'll get to that in just 1 second. Before we get to that call, Jim, during the break you were talking about something that Peter Parsons had said.
That's right.
And who is he?
Okay. Let's say the Oxyrhynchus papyri is something that's published in volume after volume after volume since about 1898. It contains over a third of the manuscripts, the papyrus manuscript, and Peter Parsons is now one of the editors. Now, I remember asking him something, and he said, well, you know, the Greek New Testament is the second best attested work of ancient history. Well, naturally, that caused me to ask the obvious question, okay, what's the best attested? And he said, well, the Hebrew Old Testament, of course.
And that's important, because what we have, again, is we have all of these different manuscripts that, while they vary to some degree, mostly their variances are small, they're pointing to the exact same thing. So that's a very, very critical point. Jonathan, let's take that call right now.
Welcome to Christian Questions. This is Jonathan and Rick. Who are we speaking with?
No, I'm here.
Yes, you're on.
Okay, good morning, and good morning to your guest.
Good morning, Larry.
Listening to this, and to me it doesn't matter if Jesus multiplied 10 barley loaves and 5 fish instead of 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. He still performed a miracle and fed 5,000 people. And, I hate to get hung up on minutia. And to me, that would be minutia. It could be a typo. When Christ walked on water, the only witnesses there, I believe, are the apostles. So I don't think some scribe would have made that up 300 years later. Who's going to buy that one, Or when he calmed the storm, it was, again, only the apostles in the boat with him. So obviously, the scriptures contain eyewitness accounts. Why do some people have a problem accepting that? They accept what's written about Julius Caesar or Socrates or Aristotle. Why not Jesus Christ and the things that he did? I'll accept those eyewitness accounts. I think sometimes when people attack the Bible, what they're trying to do is get you off the message of Jesus Christ, and we start arguing about these little points. And that's just my feeling, and maybe that's the reason they do it. I don't know. But I want to thank you for letting me babble on here, and I appreciate your show.
Well, thank you, Larry. Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
And Jonathan, Larry makes a good point. A lot of the Bible is based on eyewitness accounts, and it verifies. See, he's right. Because it verifies the existence of Jesus, because Jesus didn't write anything. He didn't record his own works. He just did them, and others recorded them. And because Jesus is probably the single most influential individual in the history of mankind, and you look at the course of the world, you have those who would like to detract from that because you have a man who didn't write anything, didn't own anything, didn't live a long time, and seemed to be relatively soft-spoken. And yet, he is the most influential person in the world. So this discussion is built around the idea that there is an amazing amount of evidence that points to the fact that these manuscripts contain truth. And I think that's really what we're getting to, is why do we look at it as so important? Because for those who are critical, they need to look at the fact of the matter, that there's so much evidence out there, you can't turn your back on it. Jim, go ahead.
Of the manuscripts that we have before the time of Constantine, the several dozen, there were 3 of them published in the 1930s by Frederick Kenyon. Now, by background, the School of Higher Criticism in the late 1900s had no such evidence. And they came up with the conclusion that it was conclusively proved that the writings of John could not possibly have been written before the late 3rd century. Now, one of the first of these 3 Chester Beatty papyri, is designated P45, contains the 4 Gospels, incomplete to be sure, and the book of Acts, showing us that all 4 Gospels were recognized early, and there was no 5th Gospel. P46 is the book of the letters of Paul, is missing just a few pieces here and there. And it's from around AD 200. And it has an interesting sequence: Romans, then Hebrews, then Corinthians, Galatians, and so forth, showing us that Paul was recognized as the author of Hebrews already around AD 200. Then P47 contains the book of Revelation, actually the center third of it. And it was written half a century earlier than the School of Higher Criticism would have had us believe it was originally written. Now, in addition, there are the Bodmer Papyri, which were published in the late 60s and early 70s. P66 is around AD 200 and covers the Gospel of John, still earlier.